Well, I called my seller. Yeah, I called my seller the day of, and I was like, "Hey, we just want to make sure you guys have everything out of the house. You're ready to go. Everything's loaded up in the U-Haul." Yep, we're ready to go. I was like, "Okay." The buyer will be there at noon with their agent, and they're gonna. And I know you said you wanted to show them some things about the house. Just go ahead and do that. Buyers show up, and absolutely nothing is gone. They wouldn't leave.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is the Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome to the Closing Table Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. Joining us on this episode, real estate professional, mastermind in real estate. We want to welcome Rob Leonard to the Closing Table. What's going on, Rob?
Hey, not a whole lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We had a few hiccups earlier, but it looked like we're going to get through this time, man. So thank you for joining us, taking time out your day, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So let's start off by just getting to know the person on the other side of the camera, other side of the closing table, I should say. In 60 seconds or less, Rob, just tell us a little bit of who you are outside of real estate.
Right on. Yeah. So originally from Saginaw, Michigan. Just moved up to Gladwin about 2.5 years ago, I believe. Yep. 2.5. Outside of work, I live pretty relaxed, calm lifestyle. Trying to get more, eating healthier, do that type of lifestyle, sourcing food locally. Up here in Gladwin, there's a lot more farmers, so, you can run into them. We even got the Amish up here. Aside from that, summertime I play softball. Also do a little, last year I got into boating. That turns out to be a really expensive habit, though. The acronym boat bust out another 1,000. So,
I bet, man.
But no, living up here, there's a lot of lakes, so I'd like to get out and do that. But yeah,
good.
I'm a dog dad too, so yeah.
Okay.
Got one fur baby.
Okay.
His name's Maverick. He's a jerk.
Shout out to Maverick, man. Shout out to Maverick. We appreciate the dogs. Well, yeah, man. That's first of all, I got into a little bit of slow pitch softball myself, man. One of my favorite things to do, man. Get out there, get active. It's perfect tool for like when you're not super young, that you can keep up with the young pace and the fastballs and everything. But it's just like if you're at least 25 and older, 30 and older, you can go all the way to like 50, 60-year-olds out there playing, man. I love it, man. Keeps you active.
That makes you feel young. You're out there running around like, hey, I remember this.
Exactly. Okay, cool, man. Love to get to know that. So let's move forward into your real estate business. I want you to first talk about how and why you started as an agent, and then just go into describing your real estate business, your methods, your strategies, and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before I got into real estate, I worked in the restaurant industry, started off as a host and then became general manager. And at the end of my restaurant life, I was working at the Frankenmuth Brewery. And one of my servers had the real estate license. They're like, yeah, man, you should try real estate. And at the time I was overworking in restaurants, man. It really pulls on you. I mean, you stay for the people, but beyond that, the rest of the job, man, it's tough. And, so I had a week's vacation. I went and did all the training, got my license back in 2019. And then once I started doing both for a little bit, I dropped back down to serving so I could have a more flexible schedule and be able to work with my clients and give them the time and the attention that they need. And right around February 2020, I went full-time into real estate. And then, of course, a month later, it got wild.
I was going to say, what a time.
A time. It really hasn't slowed down, And,
okay.
So at that time, I was working at Real Estate One, love my broker, great brokerage. But after about a year or two, I was like, I kind of want to try different ones. The grass is always greener, So I tried a couple of different ones. And, I'm at Our Home & Co. now, working with Sean. Absolutely love it. I got my broker's license last year. So I'm an associate broker here at Our Home & Co. But
nice, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, 90 hours of training. And I'll tell you what, by the time I got to the end, I was over it. I never even want to look at a computer again. But but yeah, I mean, it's good. It lets you dial in a little bit more. You get to better serve your clients, have a better understanding of the industry, stuff like that. So it does anything I can do to sharpen my tools and make myself a little bit better, but agent's always going to be a good idea. So
yep, absolutely. And that kind of ties into, providing longevity, man. You been a little bit more interested in different certifications and different titles and different types of education, continuing education that can take you to new heights and new levels, man.
Yep.
That's the key to success and longevity right there. So, and like you said, starting in February 2020, or at least going full time, what a time to start. Like you said, a month later, that's when everything shut down due to the pandemic, man. So I can see that as being obviously a very interesting time for an agent to get into the field or even start full time, because from my perspective, I would think it was probably one of the easiest times to become a real estate agent. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge was trying to, really figure out and acclimate to how the industry works, being completely shut down. Realtors were the only part that was actually shut down. The rest of real estate was allowed to operate fully. Like you could do inspections, you could do title work, you could still run mortgages, things like that. So it gave me a lot of time to do online training, get certification. Like you were saying, I'm a sucker for content, continuing education, just because if I can learn one thing every time, at least one thing in every content program, then it's a win for me and my clients. But I would say it got a little easier as far as there was a lot more people looking to buy, with the lowered interest rates in the market. There was a lot more people running around. So getting into the industry there, it was a little easier to find clients and to sell. It taught you a lot as far as writing strong offers without giving up too many, things for your buyers, protections. Like, I'll never, ever, ever tell someone to waive an inspection, but if they do, I make them sign something saying, "Hey, this is on you, bro."
Yeah. Yes.
But
that's real.
But yeah, you had to learn how to have to write your strong offers. You had to have good working relations with other people in the industry, because if it comes down to two offers are exactly the same and they like working with you, whereas they've had issues with another agent, it's really important to have those good working relations, because yours is more likely to get accepted. And a lot of people don't think about that. Some of these agents, and I never don't want to talk bad about anyone in particular, but some of them are only out for themselves instead of having good collaborations with other people in the industry. And, it comes back to bite them. It really does.
Yes, it does. I literally, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, and another, important aspect of it is I've had offers where they filled out the bare minimum, and if you're going to do the bare minimum when you're writing a purchase agreement, you're going to be a difficult person to work with, because you're not organized. To me, it's not a professional look. That's the other piece, is like, you got to fill out every line. And my first broker beat that into me. Like, she had me writing a lot of dummy purchase agreements just for practice before I really got going. But, little things like that go a long way.
Yes, that is a fact. I literally just had some agents on who were partners, and you don't see that too often. I reached out to one agent, said I would love to have you on, and she was like, I gotta have my partner on, we do this together. So we had both of them, and that's not the first time I've had that, but I'm saying all that to say, during that time I emphasized the importance of collaboration over competition. Yes, I understand this is an entrepreneurial type of role. You are operating your own business. I can't even say in a sense, you literally are operating your own business. So you can only eat what you actually go out and hunt, in a sense, in some sort of way. So it can become a real dog eat dog world. It can be very competitive, agent against agent, but it shouldn't be that way. Because whether you're working by yourself, with a partner, whatever, you still have to work with other agents on the other side of the closing table.
Yeah, I meet up.
So it's very, very important for that.
Yeah, I meet up with other agents quite often. We go out to lunch, we talk from different brokerages. And, again, I started in Saginaw, and then I moved up to Gladwin. And moving to a new market where you don't know anyone, it can be a little challenging getting, natural leads, organic leads, as we call them. So I've had people from other brokerages refer me people to work with that are looking up in this area, because it's a little bit too far of a drive for them. And if I didn't have those good working relationships, I wouldn't have got those transactions. And so that's why I think it's so important to have, positive experiences with people. And, it's not always going to go great. We can't control, what our clients do sometimes. And I actually just had a terrible experience where one of my sellers wouldn't vacate the home, so they were given 1 day occupancy. They had a quick close, so they had a week to move out. And then we closed on Friday. They were supposed to give up keys by Saturday. Well, I had out of town people that I was showing houses to that I had already committed to, like 2 weeks prior, showing up here in Houghton Lake, West Branch area. And so I wasn't going to be able to be there to hand the keys off. Well, I called my seller.
Oh
Yeah, I called my
no.
seller the day of, and I was like, "Hey, we just want to make sure you guys have everything out of the house. You're ready to go. Everything's loaded up in the U-Haul. Yep, yep, we're ready to go." I was like, "Okay." The buyer will be there at noon with their agent, and they're gonna. And I know you said you wanted to show them some things about the house. Just go ahead and do that. Buyers show up, and absolutely nothing is gone. They wouldn't leave. I had to call another broker in my office. I was like, "Hey, man, I need you to go to this house. I need you to give them the boot." They ended up leaving, but it was just a terrible situation. I think that agent felt some sort of way about it, and I was like, it was out of my control. You wrote an offer for close in 5 days. I already had prior obligations. I couldn't be there. I'm not going to tell an out of town buyer because they're from Indiana. I was like, I'm not going to tell an out of town
Right.
buyer, sorry, I'm not showing you houses now because I have to go babysit my seller.
Right.
But
Right. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it was an
What a
awful.
situation
It
to
was
be
awful.
in.
I was really glad my
Hmm.
the other broker in my office went over there and was able to get everyone under control, get them moved out, got them to leave, and got the buyer the keys because in the end they're the ones hurting the most. So
So it still happened that day?
yeah, yeah, it happened. They jumped. He went over there.
What?
Yeah, because he actually
Whoa.
knew them personally. So he told me a story. I guess his dad or his uncle was friends with them, so he would actually go over to that house when he was younger. Yeah,
Uh
and so he went.
oh.
He went and talked to him. He's like, "Hey, man, you got to get out. You got to go per the contract. Let's go." And so they just jumped in the U-Haul and took off. They left a lot of personal items, which was unfortunate because even after all of that, the buyer wanted to give them their stuff back, and he just stopped answering the phone for me because he thought he was in trouble. And so I was like, I guess you can keep it because he doesn't want it. Yeah, it
Wow.
was some really personal stuff like I think it was
Wow.
social security card, checkbooks, things like that. Yeah, you think he
Oh my
wanted? Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. No, it wasn't a good experience. So things happen, but you have to make understand it's like
Yeah.
there
Whew.
there's working professionals and then there's clients, and you can't always control your clients. So you just have to
Yeah,
try and
nah,
coach
nah.
them the best you can.
And that's a perfect example of not
Yep.
being able to control your clients because you can't. What can you do? I mean,
Yep.
you can't necessarily pick their stuff up and move it for
Yep.
them. Like you got to let them do it on their time, but they have to abide by the contractual obligations. But
Yeah.
what a situation
Yeah.
to be in!
Yeah, but I tried. They
First and
told me.
foremost, yeah, for
Yeah.
them to move their entire house minus the few personal things in one day.
Yep. Well, they had
Whoa,
all week to prepare. So,
whoa.
like, they wrote the contract on Sunday. We closed on Friday. And I would text them every day. Are you moving out? Are you moving out? Yep. Yep. We're moving. We're moving. And, they would tell me they were. And I'd go over there and it wouldn't look like it. And I said, you have to be gone by Saturday at noon.
Right.
And yeah, it was just
I guess they
awful.
meant. I guess they thought when you said, "Are you moving?" They said, "Yeah, that's the plan. That's the intent. We haven't really done anything, but yeah, we are moving
Right.
eventually."
Yeah. We feel like it on our time. No, it doesn't work like
Right.
that.
I want to dig into your the market that you serve, Gladwin,
Yep.
because I don't think I've ever been there. I'm familiar with Saginaw, not familiar with Gladwin. So
Yep.
I want you to kind of talk about your market in two different ways, right? One, geographically, describe it for people like myself who've never been there. What is it like there? And then go into the economics. You have any real estate data that you could share with us to kind of give us the temperature of what real estate
Yeah.
looks like there?
So I do a 1 hour drive around Gladwin. So like I'll still hit Saginaw Bay City and Midland. In fact, my showing today is in is in Bay City. I had one for Houghton Lake, but they ended up going under contract, so we had to cancel that one. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but so I'll do about a 1 hour drive. Gladwin is about 45 minutes north west of Saginaw. So it's like right. I'm gonna do the math thing. I'll do it. This one faces right.
Yep.
It's about like right
There
here.
it is.
Yeah. And so it's a smaller town, very rural, lots of farms. I want to say in the
Hmm.
city itself, there's just over 6,000 people, um, but there's 3 traffic lights, even at one main strip.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah,
He said 3 traffic lights.
yeah. The speed limit's just 65 everywhere you go. And technically it's 55, but we do 65.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, it's very rural, slower paced. It's a big Amish
Hmm.
community, so you'll have to watch out for them
Hmm.
because they have their little buggies on the side of the road as well. Um,
Hmm.
Completely different lifestyle than living in Saginaw. So the majority of my life I lived in Saginaw, and it's not a huge city by any means, but it's definitely a city. And then you move up here, and it's like, okay, this is a little different. People just move slower, and even like working hand in hand with agents. Northern agents are much more different than Southern agents. Southern agents are
I
fast,
agree.
fast, 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 fast. Northern agents are like, I'll call you back in a couple days type thing. So it can be
Hmm.
frustrating. I mean,
Mm.
they're not all like that. I don't want to say they're
Right.
all like that, but there are some.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get
Yep.
it.
And
So I want to kind of differentiate. I hate to cut you off.
yeah,
When you say northern agents and southern agents? We're speaking specifically in the state of Michigan. I want you to
Yeah.
just be more specific.
Yeah.
Do you mean upper peninsula agents, or do
Yeah.
you mean like the difference between what's the cutoff?
The northern part of the mitten, yeah. And it's
Okay.
the more rural ones. I mean, as you get to like Traverse City and stuff like that, they're very similar to like the bigger city agents. But in Alger, Luther, Cadillac, stuff like that, they're just it's just a whole different animal as far as like dealing with them. Yeah, but it's not bad. I'd rather deal. I like. They all have their pros and cons. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's explore the whole fact that you're right off of the water, got waterfront properties there. You say you just even got into boating yourself,
yeah,
and it's a rural community too. So I just know it just has its own experiences. Do you have any memorable experiences yourself from maybe showing different houses, different properties, the waterfronts, the rules, anything that stood out to you in regards to the property, what you may have found about the property? Learned about the property, anything like that?
Yeah, there's some very unique stuff up here. So the other thing about being more rural is there's a lot less oversight from the townships about what you can do in your house. So you can find some pretty wild things. Yeah. So last year there was a house up for sale that I got to show. It was like, they call it the tree house, and there was a tree growing right through the center of it. And and they built around it, and it was pretty cool. It wasn't a huge house by any means, but that one was a pretty nifty one. I've also shown houses while I was on the boat, like a lakefront property. I'll drive right up to the dock and jump off, like, let's go look at this one. You know what I mean? And I have clients that are looking on the water. We'll do that. Yeah. It's also a tax write-off that way. How I feel about taxes. Yeah. Well, I'm using it for work.
Perfect. Yeah. So, did you have something else?
No, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, you definitely see some different things, and the community itself, it shuts down in the wintertime because I wouldn't say Gladwin's exactly a destination town, but there's a lot of people that have second homes up here or vacation properties.
Right.
So in the wintertime, it's a lot more mild, and then Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July, it's just chaos. It's a big party.
Lit. Yep. Yeah.
And we do have.
So
go ahead. I was I
was going to ask about short-term rentals and Airbnbs. Is that in that market at all?
Yeah, you'll run into some of them. There are some restrictions. Like there's a POA over in Sugar Springs, which is Lancer Lake and Lancelot Lake. So they don't allow short-term rentals. They allow, I want to say it's 9 months or more, or longer, or 9 months or more is what their minimum lease requirements are. But beyond that, the majority of places do allow them. And there's pros and cons to short-term rentals. Like, I'm personally not a huge fan of them because generally what will happen is you'll have property owners that live there full time. Then someone will come up with all their friends, throw a big party. They're up rowdy all night. And it's like, man, I'm just trying to live my life here and you guys are partying. And I also see it from their point of view too. It's like, this is our little vacation. I want to it's a getaway. We're hanging out up here and we want to have fun. So I see both sides of it, but personally, I'm not a huge advocate for it, especially if like the owner of the property doesn't live in the area. Like let's just say they live in different states or something like that. They just have no buy into the community. They're not spending their money here. They're not doing that type of stuff. So there's pros and cons. But yeah, so some places are limited. Some places it's allowed. Sugar Springs is a very popular destination for a lot of downstate buyers or out of state buyers for the second properties. It's a really nice area. They have like a golf course. They have restaurants. The lakes are really nice. That's actually where I take my boat a lot because Seacourt and Smallwood up here are two of the lakes that were affected by the dam failure in 2020. So they're technically empty. I mean, there's some people wild out there taking their boats out there. I personally won't. I don't know the lake well enough. And so we're dealing with some issues with a special assessment that's going to start hitting those properties as well. So we don't have any finalization on it, but the preliminary numbers came out. They're trying to source other ways to make less of an impact on the homeowners. But according to my property is going to take a hit about, I want to say $38,000 in assessments. And I don't even have water right now. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about in the property's value?
And the taxes. So it's going to be added on to our taxes. Yeah. Yeah, tell me about it.
Goodness.
That's the same response to everybody up here right now. And it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
So how is the community actually reacting to that? Is anything going on actively to kind of stand against that, or what's going on there?
So they just had a meeting, I believe it was a Monday this week, trying to fight back. There's what's called the Four Lakes Task Force, and they're charged with, overseeing the project to get it done, to get the water back. And, it kind of puts you in a sticky situation because, if we fight hard enough to where we're like, all right, we're not bringing this back, then the water's not going to come back. And that's going to take away money out of the economy from people coming up. You know what I mean? So businesses are already taking a hit from it. But the good thing is property values will go back up, because no water to having water is it makes a big difference as well. But yeah, it's just there's a group of people. I mean, you get on the local pages and it's a war back and forth. It's like, because a lot of people, in this area are living paycheck to paycheck, like a majority of America, and so taking a big hit like that is going to be detrimental to their household. Like, what? Sorry, we're not going to be able to go on vacation or even buy good food anymore. We're going to have to really severely limit what we can bring in inside the house to eat. So it's a big fight, yeah, and it's wild. It gets pretty heated on those Facebook pages. So.
Yeah, on the Facebook. Yeah, that's where it goes down on Facebook. Yeah,
I sit in the background and watch. I was like, I'm not getting involved at all.
No, I get it. But one thing I do like about what you're saying is the fact that the community is coming together to try to do something about that, right? You don't necessarily get that all the time in those bigger cities, like people wanting to be involved in some of these community actions and things that are going on. Like in those smaller towns, you get more people who are really like, invested in what goes on around there. And I mean, obviously, when it comes to affecting your property taxes or your property value, you're probably going to jump up then. But that is a great example of how the community is coming together to try to do something to change whatever's going on there. So thank you for providing that insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's something that you have to keep in mind, like when you're working with buyers that are looking in this area, because if they don't know that, or let's say they're working with, let's say that they're coming up from Detroit and, their brother's an agent and their brother comes up and shows them a house. Well, he might not know what's going on, and so there is some misinformation going back and forth. Like some people are talking like, oh, my property value just dropped in 40,000. It's like, yes and no. It's like, if I sell it, am I going to have to pay this? Do I have the equity in it? Yes and no. Everything's negotiable. So like if I were to sell my house, I'd put right in the remarks, buyer to assume special assessment. Boom, done. And then, I might lose a couple buyers, but at least that way, I'm not going to have, whoever's going to be living here is going to be on the hook for it. You know what I mean? So I'm not selling my house anytime soon. I love it. But if that were the case, and that's what I would recommend to my sellers is, do it that way, or maybe just leave it off and we'll see what kind of offers we get and then have that negotiation at that time. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So
exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's more than one way to kind of go around and still get the results you want. So
exactly.
That's finding creative solutions. I like that. Absolutely. I like that approach.
Yeah, and you got to be proactive. Rather than reactive,
Facts. Rob, before we talked, man, and actually did this interview, you said something to me that kind of stood out. You said something like, most of your sales aren't going to show up online.
Yeah.
Now, when you said that, no, please, I want you to explain that a little bit more, please, before I continue.
So I'm on the Saginaw Board of Realtors, and real estate rules change from subdivision to township to county to state. Like, they all have different rules. And so, for instance, the board I'm on is the Saginaw Board. There's a Midland Board. There's a Bay County Board. There's a Clare Gladwin Board. There's a Water Wonderland Board, which is Houghton Lake. There's a Northern Great Lakes Board. And all these boards surround me. Well, because I'm not on all those individual boards, when I sell a property up here in Gladwin and they're on a different board, they can't put that, oh, it was sold by Rob. They'll put it was a non-member MLS is what the term that they use. And Zillow, they only go off of what the MLS says. So whatever they put it as is who gets credit. So I can't even call and be like, hey, I'm Rob. I sold this house. I had the documentation. So that way I can get credit for the sale. They're like, sorry, we can't do anything about it. And, for my own ego, I don't really give a crap whether I get credit or not. But the majority of buyers start online. You know what I mean? And if they feel that you're not doing any sales, or if they feel like you're not doing any volume, they might not have trust in you because they might not think that you're a full-time agent. They might think that you're a part-time. And, there's nothing bad about part-time agents, but I want my agent to have the sharpest tool set. You know what I mean? I want them to be on their A game. So that's what, So the majority of the boards have what's called data share. So I do have access to a lot of the properties, information on the properties, but some don't. Midland is one, and Water Wonderland's another one. They don't data share with Saginaw Board. And I can show the Midland houses, like I have access to the Bluetooth lock boxes in the Midland board, but I do not on the Water Wonderland board, which is Houghton Lake area. So I actually have to call the agent or the listing office, get a special code, and I'm like, hey, I was like, I have the the same apps you use to, access the homes. I said, but your board doesn't communicate with my board. Can I get a 1-day code? So it's kind of fun.
Wow.
It's more annoying. And to be honest, I think it's doing a disservice to the consumer because the reason they have all these boards separate, in my opinion, is that they want membership. They want people to be involved so that way they can make money, so that way they can keep their board going. Whereas we should have a one state MLS to where everyone has the same access. We can still keep the boards, they can keep the rules, local, because what might be good for Detroit may not be good for Gladwin. So that's why you need to have local rules and oversight. But we need to have a one state MLS. We need to all work together, because that even works as far as compensation. So like, let's say that I sold a home on the Water Wonderland board to a brokerage on the Water Wonderland board. They don't necessarily have to compensate me, even though they're offering it, because we don't have reciprocity. And so there are compensation agreements. And so usually in the state of Michigan, the seller pays the commission on both sides. Well, I take that back. They pay the listing agent brokerage, and then that brokerage offers compensation to a buyer's agent. It's basically how it's done. So if they're not going to pay, it's either I get screwed out of a compensation and, I did all this work, drive, put in the time, did everything, or I have to put it on my buyer. And there's not a lot of extra cash lying around when it comes to people buying, because, they got their down payment. A lot of people finance. There's underwriting fees, lending fees associated with that. And so then on top of it, I have to pay my commission or my realtor's commission. There's just not much left over. And a lot of people don't have that, Yeah. So, I think it's just seriously doing a disservice to everybody involved. And, the other thing too is like, so let's say I have a client that's looking in Gladwin, but also Houghton Lake. Well, now I have to send them Zillow links because I don't have access to their MLS, and it just doesn't look very professional. But, it's all a money grab, in my opinion, which, I think a lot of people have that same opinion. But
it's all about the money. Who would have known?
Crazy, right?
Crazy concept that is.
It's wild, man.
No, I get it. I get it. So since we are on the subject of the Saginaw Board of Realtors, I'm glad you provided some insight with that. But is there any examples of collaboration within that organization that kind of actually helps enhance a transaction, or has in the past for you?
Yes and no. I wouldn't say it enhances the transaction as far as like an agent saying, "Oh, you're on the Saginaw board. I'm not, or I'm gonna or not gonna take that." I don't think it does anything like that. But like, for instance, I sit on the grievance committee, and I just got on the bylaws committee, so I am able to network with other agents that I might not have ran into yet, or put a face to a name that maybe I've dealt with before, and things like that are also always going to help. Especially like I was saying earlier, is if you have two offers that are exactly the same, they have a good working relationship with one, and then they don't know this other person. It'll work best to my client, that their offer is going to get accepted just because I have that relationship with somebody. So that's one piece of it.
Okay.
Sitting on those on the grievance committee, you tend to see when people misbehave and things not to do, so that's pretty fun, and you see some interesting stuff. But I always say, real estate is like high school. It's like there's different cliques and people get along, and sometimes it's just silly drama that's not needed. And I just tend to stay out of it. We can all just be friends.
But no, that high school mentality goes way beyond high school, my friend. Let me tell you that. Work, college, anything, like you will find those same type of social hierarchies and groups and cliques and almost anything that you do, man. It's unfortunate, but you find a way to work around it, work with it, whatever the case may be, and you just make the best of it. So I completely get it.
There's some big
egos. You still have to put in your work.
There's some big egos in this industry.
I bet.
Not too bad though.
Well, when we are educating our first time home buyers, very, very interesting concept, because going through a process with first time home buyers is completely different from investors or people who've been doing this for a while consistently. Can you talk about your educational approach when you are kind of walking your first time home buyers through the process? And do you have an example of noticing a difference of you providing education to your clients and them actually knowing and moving forward with that knowledge?
Absolutely. Well, it builds trust and builds rapport when you actually take the time. So what I do is, when I first find someone that tells me they're a first time home buyer, we get them pre-approved to find out exactly what their budget is, find out what loan type they're going to use, and then at the very first home, I schedule a long showing. So the average person walks through a house in 10 to 15 minutes. The first showing, I'll do 45 minutes to an hour. we'll walk through. I'll ask them questions like, what do you like? What don't you like? What are your absolute no's? Is this like things about the house that, just to kind of feel out what makes them tick. So that way we're not wasting our time looking at a bunch of houses that they're just not going to like. And I can really dial it into something that they're most likely going to pull the trigger on. Because the other thing too is if homes are occupied and we're just going and looking at browsing homes all day, these people had to clean the house, and maybe they had kids and they had to get them ready, get them in the car, get the dogs put away, and do all this stuff for a client that's really not that interested. So that's why I try to make sure that I can really dial it in. So what I do is, after we get done with the showing, I'm asked, like, are you familiar with the home buying process? Some people are very good. Like, I have a guy under contract right now that he spent hours online researching the do's, the don'ts. I mean, he had all the right questions to ask me. And then I have someone just go get approved and be like, all right, tell me what to do. And so I'll sit down and I'll explain, all the paperwork that they're going to see, what it all means, because there's a lot of it. And I always tell them, I was like, every one of these documents that you're signing with a lawsuit at some point in time. I said, so that's why we're signing, is to protect you, protect me. I explained that, I work for you. I have a fiduciary responsibility to you. So I have to keep your interests even above my own when making decisions or leveraging or negotiating on your behalf. And I also, where I add value is I tell people, I was like, if you're looking for a realtor to pick the color scheme of your house, I was like, I'm not the guy. I can barely dress myself. I said, but if you want me to see things that are probably going to show up on an inspection, so that way we're not wasting $350 to get an inspection to see something that I could possibly point out in doing a walkthrough, I was like, that's my value add. So like, I'll go through. Like, you see this crack in the foundation? I was like, the house is settled. It is Michigan. I said, but there are, it is pushed out a little bit, so you probably have some movement in that wall that's going to create some foundation issues. An inspector is probably going to flag that. Is that something that you're comfortable with? Because the other thing to keep in mind is that this isn't your forever home. That's going to have to be addressed before you sell. Otherwise, you're going to have people that are not going to offer, or it might limit the amount of offers that you get. And so like I do little things like that, pointing out stuff to the roof. And, I'm not an inspector. I tell them I'm not a professional. I said, but these are things I've seen in the past that would indicate a problem, and I always, like I said earlier in the show, I always recommend getting an inspection. I can't stand it when people say, yeah, I don't think I want to. I'm like, no, we really need to, and then
please do.
Right. And I even tell too, I was like, don't let it be your uncle. The last thing you want to do is move into a house. He missed something, and then you got to stare at him on Thanksgiving, and he's all mad, and you're all mad at him because it cost you $10,000.
I know, right?
So.
Oh man, yeah. Don't if your uncle or your father, cousin, brother is in a professional licensed inspector or whatever the case may be, let's not just call them just because they bought a house 20 years ago.
Right.
Let's not do that. Yeah,
times have changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a solid point right there. Thanks for bringing that up too. I want you to motivate us at this point now, Rob. I want to hear if there's a movie, book, quote, or even philosophy that you live by, or that you just consume that helps shape your life personally or professionally that you can share with us.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites, and I'm going to butcher it because it's been a while since I heard it, but it was when they were asking Thomas Edison about the 1,000 failed attempts he had to make the light bulb. And he's like, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learned 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And just having that mindset to just, things are going to happen. You just have to not look at it in the negative. Like, everything I look at as a positive. It's a learning experience, If I get pulled over or for speeding or something like that, I'll be like, maybe if I wouldn't go too fast, I could have killed someone a mile up the road. Maybe him pulling me over saved that person's life, or even my own. You know what I mean? And so, or like if I have a slower car in front of me, I used to be so pissed and always pass them. Now I'm like, no, yeah. I was like, you're probably saving me from a problem or down the road, maybe getting pulled over, maybe an accident. I said, so I just try to Hakuna Matata, man, life's too crazy to get all riled up about it, and think negatively. So. But that was, that Thomas Edison quote was one of my favorites. I don't even know if they interviewed him or if they just made it up, but I read it somewhere in the movie.
It sounds good, though.
That's like, works for me. It doesn't matter where it came from as long as it works.
Real talk. Yeah. That's funny. I love to meet people that feels that exact same way. It took me a while to get to that mindset. Because I used to be the same way. I say the two things that makes my blood itch is construction and slow internet.
Yeah.
And I would hate construction or just slow traffic, whatever. So I am the type of like, why are you driving so slow? Let me get over. But then I got to a point where I said the same thing you said. They could be saving me from a meteor falling from the sky and landing up there, or like you said, getting pulled over, or an accident, or a black ice, or whatever the case may be. It's like, just take whatever. It's more about how you react to things than what things happen to you. So you just kind of just slow it down, and just just go with the flow at some points, man. Just go with the flow. That's essentially what it is. So I love to hear that, man. That was a perfect place to land the plane, Rob. Thank you so much for pulling up a chair, sharing your information. At this point, if you have any last words or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours.
All right. No, yeah, my name is Rob Leonard. If you're looking to buy in Central Michigan here, reach out. Number is 989-971-0083. Even if you just have questions, I love talking real estate. Kevin, thanks for having me on your show today, man.
Absolutely, Rob. No, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. For our YouTube audience, right now, if you are watching, if you got to this point in the video, do us both a favor and hit that like button. Make sure you also share and subscribe to the content. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, please do the same. Give us a like, give us a 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. Rob, I always like to make a thought-provoking episode, so I'm going to leave our audience with a question. What challenges come with owning waterfront properties that you didn't know until you owned it? Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, I'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.